Warren Buffett has made hundreds, potentially thousands of statements regarding matters involving nearly every single area in finance. One thing we know about him is that he's almost never direct and rarely bearish on anything. But in an interview done in April of this year, some of the statements he made shocked millions around the world. While at the time, the economy still seemed resilient and strong, reviewing his words today, we can see that Buffett may have been hinting at something much more serious. We know that early last year, we saw a lot of analysts and banks predict that a recession was coming in 2023. Deutsche Bank famously reported that they believed there was close to a 100% chance of a recession occurring in the United States at some point during the year. And there was plenty of data to point to this fact. Without boring you to death with various figures, let's just do a quick overview of the situation back then. Home prices were dropping nationally for the first time since 2008. Interest rates were being hiked at record levels, and the yield curve, one of the most reliable indicators in finance, had inverted, signaling a troubling future ahead. But putting all those things to the side, we saw that as time went on, people brushed off this warning. The summer brought forth a pause in the real estate crash, a newfound optimism in the stock market, and a sudden feeling of comfort with the new high interest rate world. But somewhere during these last 6 months, we lost touch with the signals that were clear from the start of the year. Buffett was warning us, and we were just ignoring, or at least refusing to believe, the growing implications his words seemed to be spelling out. In that interview, Becky Quick began it by asking Warren what camp he belonged to, the bearish or the bullish. And of course, Warren doesn't answer it directly, but pay close attention to how he chooses his words. And this answer is part of the reason why there is so much concern regarding the winter of this year. We are finally seeing the things Warren was warning us about 6 months ago. Take a listen, but before you do, please take a few moments to hit that like and subscribe button if you're enjoying the content thus far. Every single like is a massive boost to this channel, and I would greatly appreciate it if you just took 2 seconds to help me out. Now back to the video.
Let me just ask you about the economy. We have heard recently from Jamie Dimon in his annual letter at JP Morgan. He says a recession is much more likely now. Janet Yellen was just speaking, I think in the last 24 hours, although it's hard to track from here when things are happening, has just said in the last 24 hours, I think, that the U.S. is in better shape now than it was 6 months ago. Which of those camps would you put yourself in?
Well, I know what a lot of different businesses are doing, and I just got report from one of them that happens to be in the retail-related business. And in any event, it was minus 22% in February from a year ago. They didn't think that was going to happen.
Sales? You mean or profit?
In sales. Profits are down a lot more than that. On the other hand, some of our businesses are still doing fine, but they all are reporting that the new, some of them are living off of orders were placed months earlier and that sort of thing. But it's a tougher world. And the railroad business is down, and carloads carried, but it isn't dramatic. And of course, we've got a utility business, and that doesn't really vary much with things. But overall, I think people that run our businesses that do have any sensitivity to the economy are surprised at where they are now compared to where they thought they were going to be 6 months ago.
As you just saw Warren explain, at the time he was seeing real-time figures that suggested a serious slowdown in some of the businesses he manages. One of those was the railroads, and if we dig into this further using more up-to-date information, you can see that this warning is now flashing red. Railroad freight traffic and volume is well known to be a leading economic indicator. This means that before anything else heads south, we usually see the railroad business begin to falter. Now, 6 months later, we can read the Union Pacific earnings report to get a more in-depth look into what is happening now. Are things bad, worse, or getting better? They just released earnings about 2 weeks ago, and as you're about to see, Warren's observation was spot on. In fact, since then, the overall theme in the railroad market has turned very bearish. Revenues are down over 9%, profits are down 20%, and volume is down 3%. The theme is clear, the music is slowing down, and what happens next is rather alarming. If we look at other leading industries such as trucking, things are no better. It's well known within the freight industry that trucking is already in a major recession. Bankruptcies, extremely low rates, growing fuel costs, and oversaturation are causing a massive shakeup in the industry. The World Container Index, an index that tracks container movement on 8 major shipping routes, reported that traffic is down 75% from just 1 year ago. That is an unbelievable number that shows you that something just isn't right about the economy. Yet we're still not feeling it within most industries. But of course, the smell of trouble is now spreading throughout the country, reaching more and more into industries outside the typical leading edge. Going back to Warren, he was even asked directly about the chances of recession, and of course, once again, he chose to answer indirectly by focusing on something rather bearish. His words, I think, reflect what his heart is saying, and it's pretty clear if you listen carefully what he's trying to get at. The world is slowing down, and he's seeing it firsthand. Take a listen.
But you think a recession is more likely now than maybe you would have said 6 months ago?
Well, I think most of our managers would say that they are surprised at where they are now compared to how they thought they were going to feel 6 months ago at this point.
And not
in a lot of
pleasantly.
businesses, but not in the insurance business, you know. But I think the people at the railroad are somewhat surprised that car loadings aren't a little higher rather than a little lower, you know, somewhat lower. But most of the stuff we carry is essential, but it reflects what's happening. And of course, supply lines were so disrupted and everything a year or two ago that, you know, no economic figures are pure, but I'm just telling you my impression.
As you just heard him explain, there are clear indications from real-time data that in a wide array of businesses, revenues, sales, and profits are rapidly decreasing. This comes at a time where interest rates are going up and credit is getting tougher and tougher to get. The overall economic landscape today was sort of held up by a surprise summer rally in tech stocks, but take a look around at some of the most reliable businesses in the world and you'll see that the consumer is starting to wave the white flag. Everything from tech to trucking, railroads, and real estate. We are witnessing a cresting of the hill. Now, as we stare down to the cliff in front of us, many are starting to panic as it comes into view. As most of you know, the truth about the economy is that it moves very slow, whether that be up or down. The crash doesn't typically happen overnight. It's a slow-moving train wreck that develops just as people are starting to give up on the idea of a bubble. Right when it seems like nothing can derail the economic train that's been going since 2020, the tight grip of interest rates and a reduced money supply slowly puts the economy to sleep until one day the grip suddenly stops the breathing and the economic panic begins. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to leave a comment letting me know what you think about Warren's words back in April.